The scream didn't sound human. It tore through the empty hallway of the office building. Raw, panicked, muffled by a closed door. For a second I froze, my hand still hovering over the elevator button, convinced I'd imagined it. But then it came again, sharper this time, and I recognized the voice. Lena, my wife. Without thinking, I sprinted toward the CEO's suite. The lights were off on the entire floor except one. The soft, golden glow spilling out from under Adrian Cole's office door. My pulse hammered in my ears as I grabbed the handle. It was locked. Another sound. Not a scream this time, something else. A low, breathless moan that made my stomach turn. Lena, my voice cracked. No answer. Something inside me snapped. I slammed my shoulder into the door. Once, twice. The third hit shattered the lock, and the door flew open. What I saw on the other side will never leave me. Not even when I'm an old man losing memories I wish I could keep. Lena was bent over Adrian's desk, her blouse half open, her hair tangled in his fist. Adrian, my wife's boss, the man who'd shaken my hand at company barbecues, who'd sent us a wedding gift, froze mid-movement, eyes wide, mouth half open as if he'd been caught stealing oxygen itself. The room spun. A metallic taste flooded my mouth. 15 years of marriage, 2 children, a home I'd built with my own hands, obliterated in a single sickening instant. Mark, wait! Lena choked out, scrambling away from him, but I was already moving. I didn't feel my feet. I didn't feel the table I shoved aside. I didn't hear the crash of the glass award I knocked off the shelf. All I felt were my hands slamming Adrian against the wall, my forearm crushing his throat. You walk into my home, I growled through clenched teeth. You smile at my kids, and this is what you do? He gurgled something. I didn't care. I pressed harder. Lena grabbed my arm, sobbing. Mark, stop. You're hurting him. Hurting him. My voice was unrecognizable, even to me. You've been hurting us for months. I'm just catching up. His face turned red. His nails dug into my wrist, desperate. I could have ended him right there. I wanted to. For one horrifying second, I really wanted to. The moment my grip loosened, Adrian collapsed, gasping like a dying fish. Lena rushed to him without looking at me, and the sight hit harder than a punch. She chose him, even now. The world went silent. A cold, numb silence that spread through my chest like frostbite. But this wasn't where the story began. This was merely the explosion, the final, devastating blast. The real story, the one I should have paid attention to, started long before this night. With whispers, with small lies, with moments I dismissed as stress, exhaustion, coincidence. If only I'd listened. Because everything I loved, everything I built, didn't collapse in a single night. It had been rotting for months. I just hadn't noticed the smell. If you'd asked me a year earlier whether Lena was capable of betrayal, I would have laughed. Not because I thought our marriage was flawless, but because she'd always been the steady one, the careful one, the woman who color-coded the kids' school calendar and refused to cross the street unless the light was green. I was the chaotic one, the forgetful one, the one she saved from himself more times than I could count. Looking back now, maybe that's why I missed the signs. We met in 2010, both pretending to enjoy a charity dinner neither of us wanted to be at. I was 32, drowning in work at a software company. She was 28, fresh into marketing, glowing with ambition and the kind of confidence that makes a man straighten his posture. Her laugh hooked me first, bright, effortless, the opposite of the noise in my head. We talked for hours that night, ignoring the speeches, losing track of dessert, forgetting the people around us existed. 6 months later, we were inseparable. A year later, we were married. 2 kids, a house in the suburbs, a dog with more personality than most humans. Our life looked solid, unshakable. A good life built on routines, shared dreams, quiet tenderness. But cracks don't start big. They start as whispers, and I ignored every single one. The first shift came after our second child, Noah, was born. The pregnancy nearly broke her. Physically, mentally, in ways I didn't understand at the time. She would sit in the nursery in the middle of the night staring at him, lost somewhere I couldn't reach. I'd ask what she was thinking, and she'd smile a tired smile and say, "Just tired, Mark." I believed her. She went to therapy. In secret. I didn't find out until months later from credit card statements. And instead of listening, instead of asking what she needed, I made her feel ashamed. I didn't know it then, but that was the first wound between us. The first invisible wall. Eventually she improved or pretended to. Life settled back into its rhythm. School mornings, baseball practices, Sunday pancakes. Her laughter returned lighter, easier. But something behind it had changed. Slightly strained. A little distant. A smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I never asked why. Because everything looked fine on the surface. And I wanted it to be fine. When Adrian Cole became CEO of her company, Lena seemed almost reborn. She came home talking about new projects, new opportunities. Her wardrobe changed. More polished, more intentional. She joined a gym. Started running before dawn. Wore perfume on weekdays. "You look nice," I'd say. She'd smile, but her eyes would flick away. "Big client meeting," she'd answer. Justified. Normal. Sensible. But those meetings grew more frequent. Her late nights more common. Her answers more vague. Sometimes I'd wake at 2 a.m. and see her phone light up with messages she didn't open, just turned over, face down. "Everything okay?" I'd ask. "Of course," she'd say. And I believed her. Because believing the person you love is easier than imagining they're lying. But then came the day our daughter, Mia, walked into the kitchen with a question that sliced through the calm I'd been clinging to. "Dad, why was Mom crying in her car?" I still remember the cold that settled in my stomach. I told myself it was stress. Work. Pressure from the new CEO. I even blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't helping enough. Maybe I'd been too distant. Too tired. But the truth? I just didn't want the answer. The second crack appeared when I found a navy blue men's tie under the passenger seat of Lena's car. Not mine. Not from the dry cleaner. Not from anyone we knew. She laughed when I asked about it. "Oh, it must be from the office. Someone probably forgot it during the charity drive." Logical. Innocent. Believable. Except it wasn't. Little by little, the lies multiplied. Client meetings that didn't exist. Trips that got canceled without her telling me. Phone calls she took outside. Messages she deleted instantly. I saw it. I felt it. But denial is a powerful drug. The third crack, the one I could no longer ignore, came when Mia whispered something that turned my blood to ice. "I saw Mom with Mr. Cole. In his car. She told me not to tell you." That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to Lena breathe beside me. The woman I'd built a family with. The woman I believed would never hurt me. And for the first time, I wasn't sure who she really was anymore. But I still wasn't ready for the truth. Because the truth was much darker than an affair. It was a plan. A plan I wasn't supposed to find. A plan that involved my wife, her powerful boss, and the future of my children. And I was already too late. If I had trusted my instincts earlier, maybe everything would have unfolded differently. Maybe I would have caught the truth before it became a wildfire consuming everything I loved. But instead, I did what most men do when faced with the unthinkable. I chose denial over confrontation, until denial was no longer possible. It started with the Chicago trip. Lena told me she'd be gone for 3 days, marketing conference, team presentations, networking events. Normal. Expected. Harmless. But then her credit card company called about suspicious activity. Purchase right outside Seattle. While she was supposedly in another state. When I asked her about it, she didn't hesitate. "Oh, my assistant used my card to buy supplies. So easy. So polished. So rehearsed." The next day I met Mike, my college friend who happened to work at her company. During lunch, I casually mentioned Lena's Chicago conference. He froze. "Chicago? Mark, that conference was canceled weeks ago." My stomach dropped clean through my body. But even then, even with the truth staring me dead in the face, I lied to myself. There must be some misunderstanding, some mix-up, some innocent explanation, because the alternative was too painful to face. But lies are like gravity, they pull everything down eventually. That week, I noticed everything. The locked company laptop, the phone she never left unattended, the way she angled the screen away from me, the laundry she suddenly insisted on doing alone, the new perfume she got from a colleague, the gym sessions that lasted too long for a workout. Then Mia found the first real evidence. Tie. A man's tie. Navy blue. Silver dots. Expensive. Hidden under the passenger seat of Lena's car. Is it yours, Dad? No. And the way my heart stuttered told me I already knew whose it was. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I waited. Observed. Collected signs like someone gathering ammunition for a war they didn't want to fight. Then one Thursday everything crystallized. I was picking up Noah from baseball practice when I spotted Lena's car, parked near the entrance of an upscale hotel. Engine off, but unmistakably hers. She had told me she was at a team dinner across town. My hands shook as I circled the block twice, trying to convince myself it wasn't her. That maybe someone else drove the same model. That maybe it was a coincidence. But there are no coincidences this sharp, this specific, this cruel. That night she came home at 9:30 p.m., smelling faintly of red wine and wearing a blouse she hadn't left the house in. How was the team dinner? I asked. Great, she said, breezing past me. We went to the new Italian place on 5th. I had driven past that restaurant earlier. It was closed for renovations. The lie was so smooth, so effortless, that it almost impressed me. Almost. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. Every inhale felt like a dagger, because I knew. And once you know, sleep becomes impossible. But even then, the truth hadn't fully revealed itself. Not until fate or stupidity handed it to me. Friday evening, I made a decision. A hopeful one. A last attempt to fix a marriage already in flames. I planned to surprise Lena with dinner at Le Mistral, the French restaurant where we celebrated every anniversary. I made reservations. I put on a shirt she always said she liked. I rehearsed what I'd say, imagining her smile when I told her we could start fresh. Then at 6:45, I pulled into her office parking lot to pick her up early. Her car was still there. Lights were off on most floors, except one. The CEO's floor. Called her. No answer. Texted her. Nothing. A tightness squeezed my lungs as I walked through the quiet hallways, every step echoing like a countdown. Then I saw the light under Adrian Cole's door. Then I heard the sound. Then I opened the door. And everything inside me, every belief, every memory, every piece of the man I used to be, shattered. The affair wasn't the whole story. It was only the doorway into something deeper, darker, colder, because an affair ends marriages. But what they planned, what they had already started, that could have ended me, permanently, and I didn't know it yet. The night I caught them should have been the climax, the explosion, the end. But in reality, it was only the beginning of the nightmare, because betrayal hurts. But betrayal with a plan? That destroys. After the scene in Adrian's office, I left. Not because I wanted to. God knows every part of me wanted to tear the building apart. But because Mia and Noah were at home. They didn't deserve to see what their mother had become. I stayed at my friend Daniel's place that night. I didn't speak, didn't eat, barely breathed. My thoughts were static. White noise and sharp images of Lena's face, her hands on Adrian, her body bending away from me and toward him. By morning, our entire world had started unraveling. Rumors spread through Lena's company like wildfire. Adrian showed up with a bruised neck and claimed a gym accident. Convenient, pathetic, predictable, but he didn't file charges, which confused me until I learned why. Other women had come forward. Women at previous companies. Women who'd been manipulated, groomed, pulled into affairs, used, discarded. Women who feared him. Women who smelled blood in the water now that someone had finally stood up to him. He wasn't protecting me. He was protecting himself. Lena tried calling. Dozens of times. I blocked her number. Everything went through Daniel's wife, Rachel, a voice of reason when I had none. 3 days later, I met with a divorce attorney. Calm, older, sharp as a blade. "You have a strong case," she said, scanning the evidence. "Very strong." But she paused. "The children complicate things." I felt something inside me sink. I had been bracing myself for betrayal as a husband. I hadn't prepared for betrayal as a father. That came next, and it hit like a truck. Mike, my friend at Lena's company, showed up at Daniel's house with a folder in his hands. He looked sick. "You need to sit down," he said. Inside the folder were photographs, emails, receipts. A timeline pieced together with brutal clarity. Lena and Adrian hadn't just been having an affair. They were planning to move across the country together. To New York, apartment listings, school evaluations for Mia and Noah. Messages like, "Once Mark calms down, it'll be easier. He's predictable." Predictable. That word ignited something dark and violent in me. But the worst part wasn't the planning. It was the secrecy. They were going to take my children without telling me. Start a new life. Cut me out. The attorney didn't call it kidnapping. She called it preparation for relocation without consent. Different words. Same meaning. They had been building a future where I didn't exist. I should have been furious. I should have been numb. But what I felt was something far worse. A cold, bone-deep fear I'd never experienced in my life. Because I realized something. The affair wasn't emotional. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even sexual in the way affairs usually are. It was strategic. Adrian used vulnerable women. Women with cracks in their lives. Women who needed validation. Women like Lena. And he had twisted her into believing they could build a perfect, shiny new life. One where the baggage of her past didn't exist. One where her children were uprooted from their home, their friends, their father, and dropped into his fantasy version of reality. I didn't think I could be shocked anymore. But then Lena's sister called. She was crying, panicked. "Mark, Lena is at my house. She's not well. She says Adrian made her promises. Told her things about you. Convinced her you didn't love her. Manipulated her. She's crumbling." I felt the world tilt. He'd preyed on her postpartum trauma. Twisted her vulnerabilities. Fed her lies about me until she didn't recognize truth anymore. And through all of it, she thought she was acting on her own decisions. She wasn't. She was drowning, and he'd offered her a lifeboat. One drilled full of holes. But just because she'd been manipulated didn't erase the devastation she caused. Or the consequences. 2 weeks after I filed for emergency custody, Lena showed up at Daniel's house. At midnight, sobbing, screaming, shaking. She collapsed on the lawn, begging to talk to me. The neighbors called the police. For the first time since everything exploded, I didn't see the woman I caught on that desk. I saw a woman broken in half by guilt, lies, and a man who'd used her as a pawn. I didn't open the door. Couldn't. Because whatever compassion I felt didn't erase the truth. She had chosen him. Chosen lies. Chosen destruction. She had been willing to take my kids away. And even if she'd been manipulated, even if Adrian had pulled every string, she had still let him. And I knew the story wasn't over. The darkest part was still ahead. The moment when everything, custody, truth, betrayal, consequences would collide. The moment that would decide whether my family survived this or shattered forever. The custody hearing changed everything. Lena walked in looking like a ghost of herself. Pale, trembling, eyes swollen from weeks of crying. Adrian didn't show. He'd already been suspended, and his wife had filed for divorce with a stack of evidence thicker than a dictionary. When the judge questioned Lena about the relocation plans, she finally broke. She admitted everything. The affair, the apartment searches, the lies, the manipulation. She didn't try to excuse it. She didn't blame me. She didn't defend Adrian. She simply said, voice shaking, "I lost myself, and I almost lost my children." The judge granted me primary custody. Lena received supervised visitation. Adrian lost his job, his marriage, and his reputation in a matter of weeks. But even with their worlds falling apart, mine wasn't magically fixed. Mia became fiercely protective of me. Noah kept asking when things would go back to normal, and I had to relearn how to breathe without anger sitting on my chest. Strangely, the healing began in small ways. Lena worked on herself. Therapy, accountability, no excuses. She didn't ask me to forgive her. She asked for the chance to become someone our kids could trust again. And over time, they slowly let her back in. Not like before, not the same, but enough. Meanwhile, I found stability and something close to hope with Rachel. Not a fairy tale, not some perfect love story scripted to erase the past. Just two people who'd been broken in different ways, slowly learning how to be unbroken together. A year later, during one of Mia's soccer games, Lena approached me quietly. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me still be their mother." I nodded, not out of forgiveness, out of acceptance. We couldn't rewrite what happened, but we could choose what came next. And as I watched our kids laughing on the field, stronger, louder, happier than they had been in months, I realized something. Sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you is what finally forces life into a shape it should have had all along. Burned, scarred, different, but finally honestly real.